So I'll guide you through a couple of methods, automatic and manual, how to find those issues. Oops. So, yeah, life is good. So my name is Sinisa, and yeah, I'm a Magento firefighter. I've extinguished the fire from many Magento projects, worked with a lot of merchants and agencies. Yeah, and I'm pretty much certified for that stuff. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about today. I'll explain a couple of Magento mechanisms which could help you to protect your code and whole project. As I mentioned, we'll go through automatic and manual code inspection, some risk mitigations, and I'll show you some further resources for reading or as a playground. So, know your enemy. When I say know your enemy, I'm not referring to the art of war. Neither I'm thinking the Rage Against the Machine song. I'm more thinking about so what I would do if I'm my own worst enemy. So for example, let's say you want to break into your own house. Are you going to, what are you going to do? Are you going through the wall? Only if you're Hulk. But in reality, you'll try to identify a weak spot. Weak spot would be, let's say, door, window, pipes, or surge, if you're brave enough. So what would be our weak spots, or how we could interact with our system? So there are a couple of interaction points. First, from the user experience, you know, we have front end and back end. But from technical perspective, what's below the surface are the APIs, SOAP, REST, GraphQL nowadays. Also, we can interact with our system through the import-export with SFTP, REST or XML and CSV. And third-party integrations. Third-party integrations are also one of the important let's say, channels for interaction, especially because no one pays attention enough. We usually assume that our vendors are secure and that there is any threat coming from that side. But for example, it may happen if someone, I don't know, somehow get credentials for your Google Tag Manager, for example, they can implement card skimming and inject some JavaScript. So just with third-party integration, without need to find any issue in your code, actually. So all the wrong things start with user input. So whenever you allow user to make any interaction, you already are in kind of trouble. So you need to be aware of that. So first, don't trust user input. No matter if it's your brother, mother, sister, godfather, just don't trust. Always double check it. You can sanitize, you can filter data. There are a lot of ways how you can do that. So Magento security mechanism. So there is a lot of mechanisms which are coming with Magento. I'll try to cover a couple of those. So first, for cross-site scripting, there are a couple of functions. They are already part of abstract block, so you can use all of them in your templates and wherever. It's injected into the abstract block this class, Magento Framework Escaper, and you have a couple of functions. They are pretty much self-explanatory, so escape HTML you're using for escaping HTML content, HTML attributes, URLs, JavaScript, CSS. And this is for Magento 2.2 because we have some deprecated methods which we could use earlier. I mean, we can still use it in 2.2, I think, because they are just marked as deprecated for now. Yeah, but it's better to use some replacement. And yeah, for further reading, you have Magento Dev Docs, which you can use for that. Cross-site request forgery. I just explained how it could look like, one simplified example. So you're logged in to the one website, let's say example.com. Then attacker sends you an email with the following HTML, and as soon as you open email, it executes. So what's the problem here? The problem here is that we don't have a way. Currently, in this example, we are vulnerable because they can transfer our money, and in order to prevent that, Magento has anti-forgery pattern. What does it mean? You probably noticed form key, which is used on each form and which generates some random string. That's because it protects you on the way. So attacker needs to know form key before they made a request. So that's what protects us. If you want to protect your form, just add echo get block HTML form key and you will be safe. And yeah, anyone remember this patch? That was one tough patch because everyone had to go through each template and to check a form if it has a form key, especially if we overridden some Magento core templates. Yeah, so that was actually the point when form keys became mandatory. So you just need to use them. The other problem which we had is PHP object injection. How is done? Well, it goes through the serialized and unserialized methods, which are Magento doesn't recommend you to use them anymore. By default, you can use them if you need for some specific cases, but you need to have a really good reason for that. And yeah, if you want to serialize any data, you should use this interface, which will, by default, instantiate JSON serializer, and it will use JSON encode and decode in the background. Yeah, this is just one example how it should be used. So all you need is just to inject this serializer interface and to use its methods, and you don't have to worry about anything. Yeah, some further reading. Magento Dev Docs is really great. There is really a lot of great explanations, and everything is mentioned there already. Also, in OWASP, which is the most famous, let's say, security organization, they have a really good explanations how it happens in a real. Later, I'll show one example how it looks like. SQL injections, by example. So, yeah, I guess everyone saw this at least once. There are a lot of bad things in this code, but one of the most obvious is known escaping, and there is any casting of ID parameter, which allows attacker to inject any SQL code. Like they can do union all with some other table and fetch all the data. The proper way would be using ZenDB select. This is just like a low level. So it will protect us. In this example, we allow Magento to protect us and to make sure that our ID parameter is only that parameter. It's not something, it doesn't contain some inner query or stuff like that. So don't use raw SQL queries unless you really know what are you doing. So there are really small number of use cases when you should do that, but in general you should not do that. Yeah, with great power comes great responsibility, and even Jedi are afraid of using raw SQLs. Yeah, and one more thing to mention, it's not a mechanism to protect your code, but it still enhances security of Magento, and it's actually contribution by Riccardo Tempesta from Mage Specialist. Yeah, and it comes bundled with Magento 2.3. It allows you, there are a couple of things which it protects. For example, Google reCAPTCHA can prevent bots from doing some automated attacks or calling, I don't know, populating any form automatically. And also, I hope everyone is using two-factor authentication, because today it's really a great asset to have to protect your web shop. Automatic code inspection for lazy developers. We'll know that every tool which is there to help you to find an issue or something, you always get some false positives. So that's what everyone expects. So that's why we need to consider automatic code inspection as well as manual code inspection. So first, static code analysis. I'm pretty sure that everyone heard here for PHP code sniffer. And beside performance-related sniffs, which are not in focus in this talk, we have detection of dangerous functions, which we'll pay attention on those later. And yeah, it can detect raw SQLs, which could direct us to take more closer look what's happening there. Is there anything to be afraid of, or could we refactor that by using Magento provided mechanisms? RAW security advisories. So this is just like a composer check. You can use it really simple just by adding it as a composer package. And every time you try to add some other composer package, it will check if such a package is already affected by some known security vulnerability. So it's really great thing to have, and it doesn't take anything from you. It just can give you some good insights. Z attack proxy. So this is one security scanner, which can help you to find some issues on automated way without knowing anything about your code. So it's kind of black box testing, and one of the problems is that it's time demanding. So you would need to take it and run probably for a couple of days, depending on your machine, to check all possible combinations. So all you have to do is just to run it against your production server and wait for a couple of days. No, you shouldn't run it against your production server. At least I don't recommend that. It should be rather part of your CI process. You can easily integrate it into Jenkins, and you can use it on your staging or dev environments to do some testing. this is how it looks approximately. You can check it's free and it's a Java application. It has, let's say, nice GUI, graphic user interface, and yeah, it comes with a lot of great functionalities. It has like a spider. You can see on the bottom. It has spider to detect all potential attack vectors, what can be exploited, what cannot be exploited, what is not in scope of our project. And yeah, I just mentioned this one. This tool is one which I'm using in general. It's commercial, but it also has open source, say, community version, which is pretty much enough for all the testing. It has easy to use graphic interface, which allows you to repeat some of the requests which are you trying to, where are you trying to breach into one of your functionalities. So it has SSL proxy. It can work with SSL connections too. Yeah, paid version does give some additional stuff, schedule scan, integration with CI, and all that stuff. You should check it. So, manual code inspection. So, usually the first thing I do when I take one project which I have to evaluate or extension or whatever, I usually first do some manual search just to see if it's a complete crap or it's, I don't know, it's good enough. So I'll share a couple of things what I'm doing when I get some new project. So first, search for user-supplied variables. If you find any of those first four variables, it means that code really smells, and I'm pretty sure that you'll find some really interesting stuff there and some issues. But in general, what are you looking for are get params, and get cookie, because they allow user to interact with your system. Get cookie, for example, is maybe underestimated because no one thinks that someone is going to change cookies and to try to abuse your system. But yeah, it's possible depending on the way how system uses your cookies. So the other thing is, you can just grab your PHP Storm or Visual Studio Code and just try to search for serialized and unserialized functions. And if you spot unserialized there, well, there could be chance that you can find a way to exploit that vulnerability. Usually how it goes, well, when you find unserialized, then you need to see if there is any good opportunity how you can use it. For example, in this example, we found one class in our project with the struct method. And why it's good for us, for attacker? It's good because it allows you to change behavior of this class. Because, for example, you can, as you can see here, you can instantiate class example1, and you can set variables which are going to be used here. So this is just one simple proof of concept, just to explain you how it could be misused. So in general, it's better for you to use JSON decoding and encode. Actually, you should use serializer interface for this stuff if you want to protect yourself. HTTP headers, usually it's very rare that someone pays attention to them because I know many people think that those headers cannot be manipulated at all, but still there are a couple of headers which could be manipulated. And for example, let's say that one example for practice, let's say that you are storing into database user agent of the customer who placed the order for some reason, for debug analysis. And you're then, you want to display that information in admin panel. And what could happen if you do not escape such output? Because you trust to the headers, you think that it cannot be manipulated. And yeah, if you don't escape, someone can put some JavaScript code into user agent, and on that way, they can execute cross-site scripting and do all the nasty stuff. Yeah, this one is pretty much common. I mean, it's pretty rare nowadays. I think no one is using string compare anymore. Probably everyone is afraid of it, but yeah, I really didn't saw it recently. But what would be some proof of concept? So this is one of the, let's say, typical use cases for string compare, where we're checking if provided token is equal to the one which we expect. So it looks like good code, but in reality, if you provide array of token as a cookie, what will happen? Well, string compare will it will throw warning, but at the same time, the whole function will return 0. And what would happen? So you got access to a privileged area. So that's also one of the places which you have to be aware of. Dangerous functions. Let's say that Magento rule set for PHP code sniffer, it detects most of those dangerous functions. Still, there are some which are not considered as dangerous, but yeah, the list is very long. So I'll just go through a couple of those which are, in general, they can be like a trigger. If you notice any of those functions, then you may think, okay, this is a good place for attacker to be. So if you find any of those, you'll try to check all the code around and to see if there is any way how you can provide some data or something which you can misuse and execute the code you want. So those are kind of triggers for that. Oops. Then PHP code execution. I'm pretty sure that everyone is familiar with all of those. I would just mention this one for regular expressions replace. So if you provide modifier E, then you are able to execute some code here. The good thing is that it's now preg replace callback. Yeah, but still, I'm pretty sure that there are still a lot of code around which is not migrated to PHP 7, especially with Magento 1. Then functions which accept callback parameter. Why they are possible place to be exploited? Because if you saw any of those functions, you can check if there is a way to manipulate with the callback parameter. And it could allow you, for example, if you can manipulate that parameter, at least you can do some information disclosure by calling PHP info. And yeah, depending on implementation, maybe you can do something more. File system functions also. So those are all triggers which you want to find and to see if they are used properly. I found one link, I'll share it later, where there is a list, really comprehensive list of all dangerous functions which could be used for file system manipulation. Risk mitigation. So we cannot be 100% sure that we will protect ourselves, that our code is completely safe. But what we can do, we can reduce attack surface, and by doing that, we'll make it harder for attacker to find a vector which he could exploit. Sorry. Oops. So how to reduce attack surface? One of the most obvious things is to protect your admin access with IP restriction. This is something which I haven't seen that many merchants are doing, but it literally cuts attack surface in half, especially because attacker doesn't have any way to access any of admin endpoints. So how you can do that? Well, you can set firewall, you can set VPN, and allow all employees to use that admin panel through the VPN. Immutable deployments. Although they have a lot of benefits from infrastructure point of view, I would just say that from security perspective, they are pretty important, because when you, for example, if you deploy your code as container, it's usually in read-only mode, which means that even if someone breach, if they find any vector, any exploit, they cannot change PHP file and put some, some backdoor there. In combination, okay, media and var directory should have a read-write, but if you configure Nginx properly, they will not execute any PHP code. So, yeah, you reduce your attack surface significantly. Web application firewall, they can also be used to detect some of the threats which are maybe not well known at this point. Maybe even Magento is not familiar with them, but if you have a good configuration of web application firewall, it can prevent some SQL injection probing or cross-site scripting probing. Yeah, even Chrome, if you notice, even Chrome can protect you from cross-site scripting. They have some mechanism. They don't allow you even to try something like that, which is good. Yeah, and there are a couple of security headers which could help you to reduce impact of any unknown cross-site scripting issue or clickjacking or whatever. So, yeah, if when your mother and father, if they say don't go out of the home, out of the house, because brick may fall on your head. So does it make you secure that nothing bad will happen? Well, no. There are still some vectors and some places where bad things could happen. And yeah, just to say a couple of things what you can do further for yourself and your project. So first, there are a couple of links which maybe you're already aware of. Magento Security Center, it has a Magento Security Scan which you can use to scan your code on a regular basis and to detect some malwares, outdated code, etc. There's Mage Security Council. They have also great tools for detecting if any of patches are missing, Mage report, and etc. playground, if you want to try yourself to learn how to identify such issues, you can use damn vulnerable web app, which is really vulnerable and it possesses a lot of issues, and you can try to exploit them. Also, there's OWASP WebGoat project, which does the similar thing. There is also a serverless app. They released it recently, which you can use. We can use it to test and to practice to exploit stuff there. Yeah, and Magento can be used for playground. Even you can earn some money if you find something, but yeah, it's harder and harder. It becomes Magento is more and more safe every day because there is a lot of issues which are fixed already, and all those simple are already found, so it will be hard. Yeah, and that's all. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I hope you all have something to take away and to think about, to test on your projects, on your extensions, your code. And yeah, if you have any question, don't hesitate to ask me here or by Twitter, LinkedIn. I would be glad to answer. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.